We're almost there. So you've chosen a secondary source and you've navigated it and you even found a good section within it. So what's next? Well, we know that secondary sources are not the law. They provide context and understanding, but they're not binding authority, and you do want to find that binding, that mandatory authority. So this video will cover extracting primary law from a secondary source. The first step is recognizing primary law citations formats. So here's some examples. You've got a California Supreme Court case, California statute, California regulation. And over here, you have some federal examples, a federal appellate court case, a statute, and a regulation. But they're not always this easily decipherable. So let's look at some of these in context. All right, here we are in CalJUR, learning about the tort of intentional infliction of emotional distress. And we found elements. All right, so now we're going to extract some primary law. We've found the elements of extreme and outrageous conduct, the plaintiff's suffering, and actual and proximate causation. So 3 elements here. And each of these 3 elements is supported by a footnote that presumably will be full of primary law citations. So let's see, if you click on footnote 1, then you'll jump down to the bottom of that CalJUR page where the footnotes are. So here we have a string of case law citations, and we have a few more sentences all within footnote 1. It's a bit of a jumble for you to sort through, but many of the cases are linked, so you can visit them directly to read more about them. Is this a comprehensive list of every case that discusses that first element of IIED? Of course not. One of our learning objectives in this module is to understand the limitations of primary law citations that are found in secondary sources. So the secondary sources don't list everything. They can't list everything. And the things that they list might be slightly out of date. So secondary sources, lists of primary law are a starting place, but that's why there are other steps in this research process. So you'll use a secondary source, you'll locate some primary authority, you'll update it to make sure it's still current, you'll expand it, which means use it as a bridge to other primary authority, and then you use that iterative process to go back and around again. All of these are skills that we'll be covering soon. But back to that same footnote. Beneath this list of cases were these few other sentences. So are these citations to primary law? We know these are cases are primary law, but these two, are these also citations to primary law? No. Don't let that section symbol fool you. A lot of students see that symbol and they assume that it means primary law, that it's a statute or that it's a regulation. But in fact, many secondary sources utilize that section symbol. It simply identifies that it's a section of something. It is not exclusive to primary law. So here's some examples. There's CalJUR using a section symbol, Witkin using a section symbol, Miller and Starr's a treatise using a section symbol. But also, we've got California statute, federal statutes. Primary law does use the section symbol as well. So back here in our footnote, these section symbols are actually cross-references, internal cross-references. So here you are in CalJUR looking at some footnotes, and these are going to point you to other sections of CalJUR, internally cross-referenced to other relevant places you can read while you're still in CalJUR. All right, a recap. So until you're an expert in an area of law, start your research in a secondary source. Make a strategic decision about which secondary source or which type of secondary source in which you're going to start your research. Make sure you read, slow down and read the information in the secondary source closely, extract that primary law from it, and finally, don't make the mistake of consulting just one secondary source. I know it takes a long time to do all this, especially the read part, but then you should go and you should see multiple secondary sources as well, if needed, so that you can make sure that you understand that legal issue and don't miss anything important. All right, and with that, you are ready to complete the learning exercise. So please answer the last questions. That's question 4 all the way through questions 11. And that's part 3 of your learning exercise, and that will conclude the lecture and exercises part of this module.